Jacob Warren. Assistant United States Attorneys. Dan M. Florio Land Firm PLLC. Alorni for defendant by Dan Maria Glorio. Southern District Reporters, PC 212, 800-50300. Interp. Case called, the Clerk, Counsel, state your appearance for the record, please. Mr. Longyear, good afternoon, Your Honor. Michael Longyear and Jacob Warren on behalf of the United States. Decree, very good. Good afternoon to you both. MS. Florio, good afternoon, Your Honor. Don Florio, 910110, of the Don Florio Law Firm, 909 3rd Avenue, New York, New York. I represent Mr. Daniel Hernandez, who is standing to the left of Re. Good afternoon, Your Honor. The Court, all right. Good afternoon, MS Florio. And good afternoon to you, Mr. Hernandez. The dependentee, good afternoon, Your Honor. Decree, you may all be seated. All right. This proceeding is in open court. However, I understand that the government has an applicant or to seal the transcript of this proceeding and to delay for a period of time the decoding of this proceeding, and the government has handed up in fact a written application to that effect. First of all, Mr. Longyear, is that correct? Mr. Longyear, yes, Your Honor. Decree, will you please briefly put on the record the basis for that request, in essence, summarize what is in the application? Southern District Reporters, PC 212, 800-50300. Ma. Longyear, yes, Your Honor. The government, in its sealing application, requests that the documents filed in connection with today's PIA, which is the waiver of indictment, the superseding enforcerization, as well as the plea transcript, be sealed and that their docketing be delayed. The reasons for our application, or the basis for that application, are twofold. One is safety concerns with respect to the defendant 2:0 members of the defendant's family. And, most importantly, the defendant we expect will be pleading guilty to certain crimes. The government anticipates filing a superseder- or presenting a superseding indictment to a grand jury in short order, and should this proceeding become public, that would jeopardize law enforcement's efforts to arrest the potential the defendants is that proposed superseding indictment and say put their lives at risk in apprehending those defendants. That is a brief summary of what is set forth more fully in our written application to Your Honor. The Court, very good. Thank you, Mr. Longyear. All right. Let me rule at the outset on that application. There is a presumption of openness of court proceedings. It may be defeated only under very limited circumstances. The Second Circuit has identified the circumstances that may justify the closure of a courtroom or the sealing of a transcript to include where an ongoing Southern District Reporters, PC 212, 800-50300. Interp. Governmental investigation may be jeopardized or where the safety of governmental personnel may be jeopardized. C. E. United States v. KJAB, 996 F.2d 1404, at 1408, 2d Sr. 1993 and United States v. Huller, 837 F.2d 84, at 87 2d CLR. 1988. To justify such reissues, the courts is to make specific on the record findings justifying these steps and explaining why the court's actions are narrowly tailored. The government here has not sought the closure of the courtroom today. V. Hernandez 9 anticipated guilty plea will be occurring, and is occurring right now, in open court. The government, however, is seeking the sealing of the transcript and the delay of docketing of this proceeding. The government has submitted an application and a letter explaining the basis for seeking sealing. The government is to file those materials under seal. Government counsel have also today in court 6ix9ine's the basis for seeking sealing. The court has carefully reviewed and reflected on the government's submission. The court finds the sealing of this proceeding and the delayed docketing of this proceeding justified, but only up to the point in time where the arrests that are anticipated as a result of Mr. Hernandez's cooperation have occurred. The government has represented that Mr. Hernandez is cooperating against multiple violent people associated with the same criminal enterprise of which he admits, or will soon apparently admit, being a member. The Southern District Reporters, PC 212, 800-50300, ZJLRDHERP. Government has represented that several of these individuals have yet to be charged. The government has represented that it intends, in the near future, to seek a superseding indictment that would include serious charges against these as yet get violent persons. The government has represented that among the information on which the superseding indictment against those individuals would be based would be information provided by Mr. Hernandez. Tulif Overend has represented that were Mr. Hernandez's plea to the 9-count superseding information against him to become public, it will alert the uncharged individuals who participated in these crimes to the 11 Kellyhood that they would soon be criminally charged. That is particularly so as the superseding indictment against Mr. _excuse-me, information against Hernandez chronicles a number of distinct violent incidents in which he is alleged to have acted in concert with others. Publicity of Mr. Hernandez's plea to these charges and his cooperation would therefore give these uncharged individuals an incentive to flee. It would also give them an incentive and an opportunity to prepare to resist, potentially with deadly force, an attempt by law enforcement to take these persons into custody. In authorizing sealing of the transcript of this proceeding, I have taken care to narrowly tailor the sealing. I do so particularly in full that Mr. Hernandez is a public. Southern District Reporters, PC 212, 800-50300, ZJLRDHERP. Figure and of the demonstrated public and press interest in his prosecution to date. I therefore order that the sealing and the delay of docketing of this proceeding is to last for only a limited time, which is to say no longer than is necessary to achieve the apprehension of the suspects who the government intends to add to the forthcoming superseding indictment that it will seek. As soon as the new suspects named in the anticipated superseding indictment have been apprehended, the government is directed immediately to ZO for the unsealing of the transcript of this proceeding and for the docketing publicly of the fact of this proceeding. I expect as well that the government will affirmatively draw attention to the fact of this guilty plea given the pupil interest in Mr. Hernandez's. Further, in the event that today's proceeding has not unsealed, or the transcript, rather, has not been unsealed. As of Friday, February 8, 2019, the government is to submit an ex parte status letter to the court explaining the need, for continued sealing and the anticipated duration of any continued sealing that it seeks. All right. With that, Ms. Florio, I have been informed that your client wishes today to plead guilty to counts 1 through 9 of an information to be filed and marked as S518 crime, B34, is that correct? Southern District Reporters, PC 212, 800-50300, ZJLRDHERP P. Ms. Florio, that is correct. The court, Mr. Hernandez, is that correct, that you intend today to plead guilty to those counts? The defendant, yes, Your Honor. The court, all right. And, counsel, is the guilty plea pursuant to a plea agreement ? Ms. Florio. It is. Longyear, yes, Your Honor. The court, all right. Counsel have handed up a plea agreement. I am going to mark it as Government Exhibit 1, and I will question counsel and the defendant later on about that document. Mr. Hernandez, before I accept your guilty plea, I am going to ask you certain questions so that I could establish to my satisfaction that you wish to plead guilty because you are guilty and not for some other reason. If you don't understand any of my questions or you would like a further opportunity to consult with your attorney, will you please let me know? The defendant: yes, Your Honor. The court: are you able to speak and understand English? The defendant: yes, Your Honor. 14. Would you kindly place the defendant under oath? The defendant was sworn. Southern District Reporters, PC 212, 800-50300. Zladherp. The court: thank you. You may be seated. Mr. Hernandez, do you understand that you are now under oath and that if you answer any of my question falsely, your answers to my questions may be used against you in another prosecution for perjury? The defendant: yes, Your Honor. The court: what is your full name? The defendant: Daniel Hernandez. The court: how old are you? The defendant: I'm 22 years old. The court: how far did you go in school? The defendant: I believe about the 10th grade. The court: where was that? The defendant: Legacy High School on 13th Street, Union Square, in Manhattan. The CRE: have you ever been treated or hospitalized for any mental illness? The defendant: yes, sir. The court: when was that? The defendant: I believe in 2011-2011/2012, around that time. The court: and briefly, what was the nature of the assignment in question? The defendant: it was depression and post-traumatic stress for the murder of my father/stepfather. Southern District Reporters, PC 212, 800-50300. Zladherp. The court: I'm very sorry to hear about that. And you said that the treatment concluded by about 2022? The defendant: yeah, 2008 and 2010-around 2011/2012, I started becoming just rebelling and not showering, like depression stuff. The court: and what was the result of the treatment you had in 2011 and 2012? The defendant: they gave me Zoloft, other medication, but I never took it. My mom used, like, Mexican remedies. The court: all right. Well, did the depression and post-traumatic stress symptoms go away? The defendant: yeah. The court: all right. The defendant: yes, Your Honor. The court: since 2012, have you been treated for any mental illness? The defendant: no, Your Honor. The court: all right. Are you now or have you recently been under the care of a doctor or a psychiatrist? The defendant: no, Your Honor. The court: have you ever been hospitalized or treated for addiction to any drugs or to alcohol? The defendant: no, Your Honor. The court: in the past 24 hours, have you taken any? Southern District Reporters, PC 212, 800-50300. Zladherp. Drugs, medicine or pills or drunk any alcoholic beverages? The defendant: no, Your Honor. The court: is your mind clear today? The defendant: yes, Your Honor. The court: do you understand what's happening in this proceeding? The defendant: yes, I do. The court: Ms. Florio, beginning with you, do you have any doubt as to your alien's competence to plead at this? Ms. Florio: I do not, Your Honor. The court: how about you, Mr. Longyear? Me. Longyear: no, Your Honor. The court: all right. Based on Mr. Hernandez's responses to my questions, which have been keys, direct, responsive and well-informed, based on his demeanor, which is highly attentive as he appears before me, I find that Mr. Hernandez is competent to enter a plea of guilty at this. Have you had a sufficient opportunity to discuss 6ix9ine your case with your attorney, M.G. Florio? The defendant: yes. Yes, Your Honor. The court, have you had a sufficient opportunity to discuss the particular charges to which you intend to plead guilty, any possible defenses to those charges, and the Southern District Reporters, PC 212, 800-50300, Interp. Consequences of entering a plea of guilty? The defendant: yes, Your Honor, I have. The court: are you satisfied with your attorney's representation of you, including in connection with reaching this plea agreement? The defendant: yes, Your Honor. The court: now, as you are aware from being present at yesterday's court conference that included all the defendants in this case, an issue had arisen as to a potential conflict involving your other attorney, Lancelot Sorrow, based on his having represented in earlier Satyrs two of your co-defendants. Until that issue is resolved, Tay is not, I have, ordered to represent you. So I'm specifically asking you whether you are satisfied with me, Florio's representation, in alluding in connection with whether to plead guilty pursuant to this plea agreement. The defendant: yes, Your Honor, I am. The court: all right. I'm now going to explain certain constitutional rights that you have. You will be giving up these rights if you enter a plea of guilty. Under the Constitution and laws of the United States, you are entitled to a speedy and a public trial by jury on the charges contained in the information. Do you understand that? The defendant: yes, I do. Southern District Reporters, PC 212, 80503OD, Interp. The court: at that trial you would be pursued to be innocent, and the government would be required to prove you guilty by competent evidence and beyond a reasonable doubt. Before you could be found guilty, you would not have to prove that you were innocent, and a jury of 12 people would have to agree unanimously that you were guilty. Do you understand that? The defendant: yes, Your Honor. The court: at that trial and at every stage of your case, you would be entitled to be represented by an attorney. And if you could not afford one would be appointed to. I present you free of charge. Do you understand that? The defendant: yes, Your Honor. During the trial, the witnesses for the government would have to come to court and testify in your presence, and your lawyer could cross-examine the witnesses for the government, object to evidence offered by the government, and, if you desired, issue subpoenas or offer evidence and coopel witnesses to testify on your behalf. Do you understand that? The defendant: yes, Your Honor. The court: at a trial, although you would have the right to testify if you chose to, you would also have a right not to testify, and no inference or suggestion of guilt could. Southern District Reporters, PC 212, 800-50300, Interp. Be drawn from the fact that you did not testify, if that was what you chose to do. Do you understand that? The defendant: yes, Your Honor. The court: at trial the government would have to prove each and every part or element of the charge beyond a reasonable doubt for you to be convicted of that charge. Do you understand that? The defendant: yes, Your Honor. The do you understand that if you were convicted at a trial, you would then have the right to appeal that verdict? The defendant: yes, Your Honor. The even at this time, right now, even as you are entering this guilty plea, you have the right to change your mind, plead not guilty, and go to trial. Do you understand that? The defendant: yes, Your Honor. The court: if you plead guilty and I accept your plea, you will give up your right to a trial and the other rights that I have just described. There will be no trial, and I will enter a judgment of guilty and sentence you on the basis of your guilty plea after considering whatever submissions I receive from you, your lawyer and the government, as well as a presentence report prepared by the probation department: T. Southern District Reporters, PC 212, 800-50300. 6ix9ine's. Do you understand that? The defendant: Yes, Your Honor. The court: If you plead guilty, you will also have to give up your right not to incriminate yourself because I will ask you questions about what you did in order to satisfy myself that you are guilty as charged. Do you understand that? The defendant: Yes, Your Honor. The court: Now, the document which contains the charges to which you have indicated you wish to plead guilty is called an information. It has been issued by the United States Attorney. These are serious